9 shocking and deeply disturbing habits narcissists reveal while showering. Have you ever paused to truly consider what unfolds in a narcissist's mind when the world is absent? When no one is watching and no social expectations are pressing upon them. These moments of solitude, often overlooked as mundane, are where the narcissist's inner world becomes most visible, where the unfiltered currents of their psyche surge freely. Even the most ordinary acts, like stepping into the shower, are never purely routine for them. For most people, showering is a simple act of self-care or a brief respite from daily stress. But for a narcissist, nothing is ordinary. Even privacy becomes a stage, a laboratory for manipulation, self-aggrandizement, and subtle rehearsals of dominance. Psychologists point out that narcissists live in a constant state of self-reinforcement, where their sense of worth is perpetually contingent on either real or imagined admiration, making private moments uniquely telling. Consider what a narcissist does behind that closed bathroom door. The act of cleansing the body transforms into a theater of the mind. Some indulge in vivid fantasies, imagining themselves as universally admired, irresistibly desirable, or impeccably powerful, constructing elaborate mental narratives that bolster their fragile self-esteem. Others replay conflicts from the past, often rewriting history in their minds so they always emerge as the wronged party, or plotting subtle revenge, whether real or imagined, against those who have challenged them. Psychologists describe this as cognitive rehearsal of superiority and vindication, a mental coping mechanism to manage their underlying insecurity and perpetual fear of insignificance. Even anger, normally tempered in public spaces, finds its outlet here, and small grievances are magnified into dramatic internal monologues that serve to maintain their self-perceived authority. From the very moment they enter the shower, narcissists can convert the space into a ritualized arena of ego affirmation. Unlike ordinary showergoers, who may simply aim to cleanse or relax, the narcissist engages in meticulous self-examination. The mirror becomes a tool for validation, not reflection. They may linger, studying posture, flexing muscles, adjusting facial expressions, as if preparing for a photo shoot designed solely to please themselves. Many speak aloud, offering rehearsed affirmations or practicing interactions they hope to control later in real life. In these moments, psychologists observe a striking interplay between narcissistic supply and fantasy. The mirror is not a mere reflective surface but a psychological device that confirms their constructed self-image, sustaining the illusion of unassailable superiority. Phrases whispered to themselves, "I am unstoppable, they will admire me," are not mere vanity, but mechanisms to soothe an internal anxiety that is ever present, even when no one else is watching. Yet this ritual is precarious, hinging on the fragile scaffolding of self-esteem. A minor imperfection, a wrinkle, a blemish, or an unexpected flaw can shatter the carefully maintained fantasy. The narcissist may respond with disproportionate irritation, anger, or silent brooding, externalizing blame onto circumstances rather than confronting the inherent fragility of their ego. Psychologists note that this immediate overreaction stems from their chronic hypersensitivity to perceived flaws, a hallmark of covert narcissism where internal insecurity is masked by outward confidence. Even a brief disruption to their idealized self-concept can trigger subsequent behaviors aimed at rapid restoration of control and admiration, illustrating why narcissistic behavior is so relentless, even in seemingly trivial moments. Beyond self-admiration, the narcissist's shower becomes a stage for rehearsing dominance over others. They mentally script scenarios in which they manipulate conversations, assert power, or rewrite history to cast themselves as the hero or the victim. Every slight, real or imagined, is meticulously analyzed and amplified into a narrative where they are either recognized and celebrated or ready to retaliate. Psychologists emphasize that this constant cognitive rehearsal is both a coping mechanism and a manipulative habit. It reinforces their sense of omnipotence while preparing them to exert influence in social interactions, demonstrating the deeply entwined nature of fantasy and control in narcissistic cognition. Even these private rituals of imagined victory are training grounds for the subtle, continuous exertion of power. In shared households, narcissists may weaponize this routine in ways that go beyond the mental realm. Long showers, excessive use of hot water, or timing disruptions are rarely random. They are micro-assertions of dominance, an unspoken declaration that their comfort and convenience supersede all else. Psychologists highlight this as a form of covert behavioral manipulation, where small, seemingly innocuous acts are deployed to maintain hierarchy and elicit compliance from others. When challenged, the narcissist often feigns ignorance or reframes the confrontation as an entitlement dispute, reinforcing their belief that the world owes them deference. Even the simplest personal act becomes a medium for asserting control, revealing that for a narcissist, solitude is never a neutral space. It is a private theater in which their ego performs continuously, rehearsing superiority and perpetuating their need for external validation. For many narcissists, the shower is far more than a place to wash away sweat and dirt. It is a private war room, a mental command center where strategy, manipulation, and control dominate every thought. While the rest of the world treats bathing as a simple act of self-care, the narcissist's mind turns it into a stage of endless rehearsal. Every interaction from the day is reviewed, every conversation analyzed, every response recalculated for maximum advantage. Psychologists note that this constant mental replay reflects the narcissist's unrelenting need for control and validation. Their mind rarely rests because it is always scanning for opportunities to assert dominance, protect their fragile ego, or rewrite history in their favor. Failures are not forgotten. They are lessons, meticulously examined to craft new tactics. Successes, meanwhile, are glorified, replayed endlessly to feed the sense of superiority they cannot relinquish. Even solitude is weaponized, transformed into a private arena of ego, manipulation, and relentless self-aggrandizement. In this intimate space, their vulnerability to self-image threats becomes painfully apparent. A minor imperfection, a stray hair, a wrinkle, a shadow in poor lighting, can ignite immediate irritation or even full-blown emotional upheaval. Psychologists identify this as the fragility of the narcissistic self, where their grandiose facade is constantly threatened by the slightest reminder of imperfection. Though they may outwardly blame circumstances, lack of sleep, stress, or environmental flaws, the underlying cause is a deeply fragile ego. These small, private crises trigger urgent compensatory behaviors, seeking validation, rehearsing dominance in imagined scenarios, or intensifying control in the interactions that follow. Even a moment meant for routine cleansing becomes a crucible for insecurity and self-assertion. Beyond these flashes of insecurity, the shower becomes a theater for the narcissist's grandiose fantasies. Unlike ordinary minds that might process the day quietly, narcissists create elaborate mental narratives in which they are always triumphant, always admired, and always in control. Past arguments are rewritten so that they emerge as heroes or victims, conversations are rehearsed to perfection, and imagined slights are transformed into scenarios where they receive the recognition they feel they deserve. Psychologists describe this as a cognitive rehearsal of superiority, a private simulation of power where the narcissist ensures that they always occupy the central role, whether in memory, fantasy, or future planning. To them, the shower is not just cleansing. It is a stage upon which they perform dominance, manipulate outcomes, and practice the control they crave. Even in shared living spaces, the shower becomes a subtle tool of influence. Prolonged bathing, monopolizing hot water, or deliberately disrupting schedules are rarely accidents. They are quiet assertions of control. Every delay, every inconvenience signals to others that their needs come second. Should anyone protest, the narcissist may feign ignorance, deflect blame, or rationalize entitlement with claims of exhaustion or personal need, reinforcing the psychological hierarchy in which they sit at the top. Psychologists note that these small, covert acts of dominance serve as constant reinforcement of the narcissist's worldview, that the needs, comfort, and attention of others are secondary to their own. Simultaneously, the shower operates as a crucible for their private anger and resentment. Beneath the carefully curated exterior of confidence and composure, frustration simmers. They may replay past conflicts with surgical precision, revisiting perceived slights, imagining confrontations, and plotting subtle or even fantastical revenge. The cascading water provides cover, allowing them to indulge in these private ruminations, while psychologists observe that this ritual serves as both a coping mechanism and a rehearsal of manipulation. Each mental scenario strengthens their capacity to assert power and influence in real life, reinforcing patterns of control that leave victims psychologically unprepared for the intensity of their interactions. Even the mundane, solitary act of showering is thus transformed into an intricate interplay of ego, dominance, and fantasy. Every drop of water, every reflective surface becomes a mirror for rehearsed power, a canvas for imagined victories, and a crucible for suppressed anger. Psychologists assert that such private rituals illuminate the relentless, controlling, and self-centered nature of the narcissist's mind, an existence in which solitude is never simple, rest is never restorative, and even the most ordinary acts serve the singular purpose of maintaining their sense of supremacy. In the privacy of the shower, one witnesses not relaxation, but the unyielding machinery of narcissistic thought, where every reflection, every ripple, and every imagined audience reinforces the imperatives of control, dominance, and self-validation. The sound of water cascading over their body becomes a mask for a private storm, a soundtrack to the muttered threats, gritted teeth, and whispered monologues playing endlessly in their mind. In these moments of solitude, narcissists often rehearse emotional punishments, guilt-tripping maneuvers, or the subtle undermining of anyone who has challenged or contradicted them. Psychologists observe that narcissists rarely recognize themselves as the source of conflict. Instead, they construct a reality in which the world is unjust, and everyone else has failed to acknowledge their supposed brilliance. By the time they step out of the shower, this private rehearsal has already fortified their sense of justification, leaving them primed to enact behaviors that reinforce their control, maintain superiority, and manipulate those around them, all while internally narrating a story in which they are blameless. Not every narcissist uses the shower as a stage for anger. Some retreat into an elaborate performance of victimhood, immersing themselves in self-pity with the same meticulous focus they use to craft dominance. While outward appearances convey confidence and untouchable superiority, privately they may dwell in sulking, scanning the tiles, or replaying imagined grievances. Psychologists note that these rituals of private despair serve as rehearsals, a way for narcissists to cultivate the narrative of being wronged, unappreciated, or misunderstood. Tears may fall, not from genuine grief but as a calculated reinforcement of their own belief that life owes them more attention, more validation, more control. This rehearsal of suffering is not introspection. It is an act of ego inflation, a mental exercise that convinces them of their entitlement while preparing them to wield this perceived victimhood in future interactions. The moment the shower ends, the performance evaporates. Towels dry their skin, mirrors reflect a composed face, and they step seamlessly back into the world, resuming manipulative, controlling behaviors. Psychologists describe this as the cyclical nature of narcissistic self-regulation. Private rituals of self-pity or rehearsed rage temporarily stabilize their fragile sense of self, but they do not lead to reflection or growth. Instead, these moments merely defer internal discomfort, priming the narcissist to reassert control over their environment, relationships, and narratives once they re-enter the public sphere. For some, the shower transforms into a private dialogue with their own reflection. They do not simply glance at the mirror, they converse with it, practice persuasive speeches, rehearse insults, or refine manipulative phrasing for real-world interactions. This is a deliberate, repeated process, a private theater in which the narcissist sculpts the persona they wish to present to the world, ensuring every word, tone, and expression aligns with their strategic objectives. Psychologists emphasize that these rehearsals reveal a mind obsessively oriented around influence. Even in solitude, every thought is measured, every emotion directed, every imagined interaction a rehearsal of control. In these moments, narcissists adopt multiple imagined roles, shifting seamlessly between hero, victim, and commanding authority. Every conflict, argument, or slight from earlier in the day is replayed and rewritten, giving them perfect comebacks and imagined triumphs where they dominate and manipulate with precision. These rehearsals are not idle musings. They are strategic exercises designed to maximize perceived control over others. Even charm is meticulously practiced, smiles calibrated, gestures perfected, ensuring that when they return to social interaction, they appear flawless, sincere, and compelling. Psychologists note that this relentless internal simulation reinforces cognitive patterns of manipulation, teaching the narcissist to read, predict, and shape responses in ways that serve their self-interest while leaving others vulnerable to influence. The narcissist's self-centeredness extends beyond mental rehearsals to tangible aspects of the shower itself. Shared bathrooms become a personal domain, a stage to assert dominance through seemingly mundane acts. Towels left strewn, water puddles ignored, or products scattered. Psychologists interpret these behaviors as subtle exercises of power, micro-assertions that communicate, "My needs come first, and your convenience is secondary." When living with others, this escalates. Prolonged showers, monopolizing hot water, or lingering before mirrors are all deliberate mechanisms to reinforce hierarchy. Even after stepping out, the narcissist may preen, adjust their appearance, or admire their reflection, internalizing the implicit message that the world must wait, and that they are, in every sense, central and untouchable. In this way, even the most ordinary, solitary moments are co-opted by the narcissist into exercises of strategy, fantasy, and control. The shower becomes a laboratory for ego, a rehearsal room for manipulation, and a private arena in which they assert superiority, rehearse vengeance, or immerse themselves in self-aggrandizing narratives. Psychologists recognize these private rituals as essential to understanding the narcissistic mind. It is a consciousness that never rests, that continually processes, calculates, and rehearses to ensure that every public interaction serves the singular purpose of maintaining dominance, feeding self-importance, and protecting a fragile ego. Even in moments of solitude, narcissists rarely surrender control, and a passive-aggressive undercurrent often courses through their private rituals. When anger simmers, a sense of authority is challenged, or their ego is threatened, minor disruptions, leaving towels strewn, using others' products without permission, letting water run, or monopolizing the bathroom, are rarely accidents. Psychologists describe this as a subtle but deliberate assertion of dominance. Small, calculated acts that provoke frustration and reinforce their perception of self-importance. To an outsider, it may seem trivial, even petty, but for the narcissist, these acts function as microdemonstrations of entitlement and power, transforming a simple routine into a stage for manipulation and control, a reflection of their insatiable need to be center stage even when no one is watching. What appears as an ordinary ritual, stepping into a stream of warm water, can, upon closer examination, reveal a labyrinthine inner world dominated by control, ego, and strategic scheming. Within this space, 9 recurring behaviors often emerge, each one a window into the narcissist's obsessive focus on superiority and dominance. Some dwell on imagined slights, rehearsing confrontations where they emerge triumphant. Others indulge in private fantasies of admiration, plotting how to manipulate perception in future interactions. Psychologists note that these behaviors illustrate the depth of their self-centeredness. Even the smallest, most private actions are co-opted to reinforce grandiosity and manipulate others' perceptions, showing that narcissistic pathology penetrates even the mundane corners of life. Shower time, for a narcissist, is never about hygiene or personal relaxation. Instead, it becomes a mental arena for rehearsing control, strategizing deception, and indulging self-absorption. Every reflection in the mirror, every imagined conversation, every replayed slight is calculated to maintain a sense of superiority. Psychologists have observed that narcissists use these solitary moments as private laboratories for manipulation, rehearsing interactions in which they will assert dominance, shame, or impress others. This obsessive self-focus, even in the absence of observers, demonstrates the relentlessness of their ego-driven thought patterns and the extent to which their inner world is structured around self-interest and control. Even the most mundane routines, seemingly ordinary to the outside observer, are transformed into deliberate exercises of self-worship and tactical scheming. While most people use showers to decompress or reflect quietly, narcissists convert these moments into rehearsals for the social stage, planning how they will charm, deceive, or control. Each drop of water, each mirror glance, becomes a component of a calculated performance, reinforcing their internal narrative of superiority and entitlement. Psychologists recognize this as a manifestation of chronic egocentrism, a mind that cannot disengage from itself, even when alone, revealing the pervasive, intrusive nature of narcissistic thinking. Understanding these patterns sheds light on the subtlety and persistence of narcissistic behavior. What seems like a private, mundane act, a few minutes in the shower, is in reality a microcosm of their manipulation, self-aggrandizement, and strategic control. In this space, they rehearse revenge, refine interpersonal deceit, and reinforce the persona they project to the world. Psychologists emphasize that these private rituals are not incidental. They are extensions of a broader pattern in which the narcissist carries toxicity into every facet of life, illustrating how deeply embedded self-absorption and manipulative tendencies are in their daily existence. For those navigating relationships with narcissists, recognizing these private behaviors offers clarity and insight. Understanding that even intimate, solitary moments are infused with calculation and ego protection can help victims detach emotionally and see patterns for what they are. Awareness is the first step toward creating boundaries, reducing the impact of manipulative dynamics, and protecting oneself from ongoing psychological harm. By observing and naming these behaviors, one can begin to reclaim perspective and prevent the subtle erosion of self that often accompanies prolonged exposure to narcissistic influence. If these insights resonate, consider sharing this understanding with others who may be struggling with similar dynamics. Engaging with these ideas, discussing experiences, and reflecting on subtle manipulations can provide validation, context, and guidance for navigating the hidden strategies of narcissists. Psychologists stress that bringing awareness to these patterns is empowering. It turns moments of confusion and self-doubt into opportunities for clarity, preparation, and emotional resilience. Through recognition, analysis, and strategic reflection, victims of narcissistic influence can reclaim agency and cultivate a more secure, grounded understanding of themselves and their interactions with others.